Welcome back, everyone, to another week of Just Jossin. I am one half of your co-host, Sabrina Hannon.
And I'm the other half, Jasmine Heron. This week we are talking about Season 3, Episodes 11 and 12. This is Gingerbread and Helpless.
Of course, some fun facts about gingerbread.
Of course.
So, the town that Buffy was actually filmed in, Torrance, it was the name of the town, was hit with satanic panic back in the 80s. So that's a nice little tie-in.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, that one I'll read when we get to that. This is not the first time in history a slayer has been burned at the stake under, witchcraft.
Okay.
And the other things I'll just say when we get to them.
Okay. So Gingerbread was written by two different authors this time. Tanya St. John, or it's possibly Thanya, and Jane Epsonson. Now, Jane Epsonson has done a lot of work for, Band Candy being her first big one, and then she kind of moves forward. But this is her second kind of important episode. Tanya St. John, apparently this was the only one that she did, according to IMDb. So this was her only Buffy episode.
She was one and done?
Yep. And I'm interested to know why did they do that? Why did they bring in these two authors and then have one stay on and then the other one, peace out? I'd like to know some of the behind the scenes behind that. That'd be interesting to find out what happened there.
Yeah. Well, maybe they won a contest. I doubt that was it, but
I don't think so. But
so we open up and Buffy is patrolling alone up until her mother decides that this is the perfect bonding experience, and brings Buffy a snack. Now, almost immediately a vampire is like, hello.
Mm-hmm.
And Joyce somehow managed to recognize him as Mr. Sanderson from the bank, which is quite impressive considering, he's in vamp face.
Yeah, but I feel like the vampires are still fairly recognizable even with their vamp face.
Vamp face at night in a graveyard where there's not great lighting.
Okay. I feel like you see Spike with vamp face and you see Spike without vamp face and you're like, it's Spike. You see Angel with vamp face, you see Angel without vamp face, you still think Angel.
Yeah, but they're also very distinctive. Like Spike has that hair, and like the iconic outfit. Angel is tall and again, if he's evil, Angel has a very distinct look. Whereas this guy's just wearing a suit.
But it's possible that Joyce, in her work at the gallery, goes to the bank quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And, if it's that guy that you see once a week, every Friday, maybe you do recognize them.
Maybe. I just thought it was weird, like, because also in the middle of a fight, it just caught my attention. I was like, Buffy would be more likely, I think, to recognize someone because she's used to seeing the trauma. Like, it's a traumatizing experience when you see vampires, even if you've seen them one other time. But, so Buffy goes and is fighting Mr. Sanderson. And that's when Joyce starts exploring on her own, which is completely safe. And
I know.
And comes across two dead children on a merry-go-round. And they have a symbol on their hands, or at least the one does.
They both do. The boy and the girl both have a symbol on their hands, and their hands are outstretched. The boy is on the merry-go-round, the girl's on the ground next to the merry-go-round, and you can see the symbols on both of their hands. One hand on each, but their hands are outstretched. And poor Joyce is just shocked. And Buffy steps in as being strong and saying, I just wish that you could calm down. I wish that it's going to be okay. Stepping in as strong for her mom, and her mom's like, you can't make this better, sort of thing. And she's like, I just want you to calm down. Of course, then an immediate cut scene to Buffy saying to Giles, don't tell me to calm down. This is not okay.
Mm-hmm. This is also not the first time that we've seen children killed in the hellmouth. I mean, the one that comes to mind, of course, is the anointed one, who was turned into a vampire. So this is not new. What's new, obviously, is Buffy's mom being the one to find them. But I mean, whoever it was that stumbled across that bus accident would have found that little boy.
Yep.
So in general, like, the authorities of Sunnydale should not be shocked by this. So Buffy
I don't think the authorities are. I just think it's Joyce who is, shocked and appalled.
Well, the entire town winds up, going in on it, but we find out later why that is.
Yes. But again, that is the mom being the activist and calling the neighbors and calling the friends from school. And, the officials were just going to be like, oh, yes, we took some pictures of the dead kids. We'll have an investigation. Even the mayor comes in for the vigil and is saying, like a moment of silence. And Joyce is like, no silence, vigilante justice. We grown-ups are taking it back, sort of thing. And of course, I'm jumping ahead here, but
because that whole thing that Joyce does is very problematic. But we'll get to that. So yeah, Buffy shows Giles the marks on the hands, and he recognizes them as symbols, like as ritualistic symbols. So immediately he's like, this, we're not looking for a demon, we're looking for people. Which horrifies Buffy, and she was like, can you look at that claws to see if I can actually slay people? Yep.
And he scolds her for that, but and she says it almost like dark humor, like but
well, the last time she said that, she wound up slaying that human because it was Gwendolyn Post.
Yep. Well, she didn't quite slay Gwendolyn Post, as allow the living flames to consume Gwendolyn.
She cut off her arm, which led to her being slain. She was a demon, which, I mean, she'd basically turned into at that point.
A conduit.
Yes. She was a big bad at that point. Well, she had the power of being a big bad. And she was just mean to Giles, so she deserved death.
If only that was the standard.
Right? So now after that scene, we cut to Oz and Xander in the lunch line. And Xander is just it's not small talk, it's ramble. He's making ramble at Oz. And thankfully for Oz, he's known for being quiet, so he can just be there like,
Yep.
But then they go and sit down at lunch with Willow and Amy, and they're all eating lunch together, which I don't know how I would feel about that if I was Oz, but, good for him.
I do think it's interesting how just very open the group is about discussing dynamics. Like when Xander's trying to be like, oh no, I'm innocent, sort of thing, and Buffy calls him out, and she's like, no, you made with the smoochies. Like you did it, you did the bad. And I just think that's a very, I almost want to say healthy, dynamic, where they're like, this is a thing that happened and now we're moving forward, but we still acknowledge that this is a thing that happened.
It would be really weird if they didn't talk about it. And more importantly, I think since Xander's such an asshole to everyone about the shit they do, there's no way everyone's going to sit back and be like, oh yeah, we're not going to talk about this horrible thing you did that's affecting all of us. But when one of the things that they're talking about to try and make things normal is the fact that Buffy's birthday is coming up.
Yep.
And Buffy comes on over. Xander gives up his seat to her. And Buffy is just like, yeah, no, don't want to do birthday stuff. I'm cursed. And then Joyce shows up. And Buffy had also been saying to the Scoobies that nobody, they're like, there's been no movement on the case, basically, with these kids.
Well, I mean, it just happened.
But it wasn't even like really in the news. They hadn't heard about it. Like, and I think especially for someone watching today, that would be strange because we have the 24, like, information's coming to your phone constantly.
Yep.
If they just missed the news while they were getting ready for school, which I know I wasn't watching, they're not going to know about it.
Yeah. And so that, I mean, so what time do we think patrol happens for Buffy? Is it like 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night? Like, by the time, you know, they call the cops and the cops are dealing with 2 dead kids, that next news cycle is 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning. The police might not have released that information to the press yet.
Oh, the press listens to scanners, especially in small towns. They listen to the scanners, so they would have known about it.
Okay.
But
I thought in cases regarding minors, there were laws. Maybe I'm wrong.
You can't release the names. You can release that 2 children were killed.
Okay.
You can't release the names. But so Joyce comes in. She's very upset. Understand, like, you know, she's shaken up about everything. Her and Buffy walk out of the cafeteria, talk about it. And Joyce says like some discouraging comment about witches as well. And Buffy makes the mistake kind of giving her mother information that it's most likely that they're looking at witches, not a demon. And Joyce really runs with that. And that's when Joyce then calls everyone in town for a vigil. Like, she said, like, oh, I just called everyone I knew, and then they called everyone they know. And Buffy is like, for something like this, we like as few people as possible to know about it. And because it makes Buffy's job way harder. Also, you're kind of putting those people in danger as well because they're all outside their houses at night.
Yep.
And then Willow actually, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, this is one of the times Willow mentions, you know, oh, it's so strange that Buffy's mom takes an interest in her slaying, you know, takes an interest in her extracurricular activity, takes an interest in her curricular activities, really talking about how absent her parents are from her life.
Oh, yeah. And I think Willow recognizes that that's more normal than strange, because I think she said, oh, isn't that nice? Like,
yep.
Because she's probably, I'm sure she's seen TV and sees that happens for folks. Not her and not Xander, but other people. But so Willow, this is the only time that we actually see Willow's mother, who also has red hair. And her mother must be like a professor of some sort, I forget, but the way she's talking, she's definitely like some sort of very well educated person. You know, runs in Willow's family the smarts. Only Willow is much more emotionally adjusted than her mother. But her mother just now notices that Willow has cut her hair. And Willow has had short hair this entire season. I mean, short hair as in like shoulder length or a little above her shoulders. It's not super short, but it's something that we all noticed, and we don't live with Willow. And then Willow's mom also calls Buffy Bunny. This is at the vigil itself. That's where she runs into her mother, because neither one of them knew they were going. So Bunny Summers.
Yeah. Well, first she calls her Buddy, and then she calls her Bunny.
She has no clue who Buffy is. She knows who Joyce is because Joyce called her. They address each other here, and Then the mayor addresses the town. He looks very merrily. I feel like he looks very young in this scene as in comparison to other scenes.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's the lighting or what, but it struck me that to me he looks young here instead of like an old fuddy-duddy.
Yeah.
Um, but he does, as you were saying, he has Joyce get up to say a few words and like do a silent prayer, and that's not what she does. She talks about Sunnydale's death rate, and they pan to the mayor, and he is not happy right now.
Mhm.
And then she says, this town belongs to the monsters, the witches, the slayers. And like it's like Buffy just got punched in the face by her mother.
Yep.
Buffy's not the problem.
Yep.
And neither is Willow for that matter. Her mother knows of all of one witch, and it's Willow, and her mother likes Willow.
Mhm. Although to be fair, the first time they encountered a witch, it was Amy's mom, and she was a bad person.
But Joyce doesn't know that.
I know, but like, there are bad witches too.
There are, but Joyce doesn't know that. She knows one witch, and she just threw that witch under the bus, and it'll get much worse for Willow.
Mm-hmm.
Much worse. Um, so, you know, as she's saying all this negative stuff about witches, then we hop on over to a coven scene, and there's some people that we don't know in there, but then there's Amy, and then there's Willow. And I mean, there's like a skull, and they're wearing capes, which are very reminiscent of yours, Jasmine, in high school.
Yeah, I still have that.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, it's a cloak, not a cape.
Yeah.
Because it has
Got
the hood.
it. Yes. But the symbol that was on the children's hand is in the middle of their circle.
Well, it's a triangle. They're not really in a circle. They're in a triangle, and they're sitting at the vertices of the triangle.
Well, there's 4 of them.
I thought it was 3.
No, because there's Willow, Amy, that girl that we never learn her name, and I think the guy named Michael.
I did not see a 4th. I saw a 3rd. We're gonna have to look this up.
Yeah, there's 4 of them. But there is the triangle on the floor with that symbol and the little wiggly thing through it. And then we go to the school the next day, and a bunch of guys have started picking on and attacking the male witch, who is a goth kid. Like that's who he is. And they're like picking up and slamming into the locker, and Amy's right there, and she's like, they're doing it because like they're like, oh, everyone knows he's a witch, and like the fever is starting to catch on, the satanic panic. And Amy says like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna do that to me? And like they turn, and you can see that that's not out of the question for them. Like right now it is, but not necessarily later.
Yep.
And that's when Buffy shows up, and then they're like, we were just leaving.
And because Buffy gives her cute little, like,
I'll break you.
Hello? And they're like, we don't want to mess with you. We've seen too many athletes and bullies get smacked around by you.
We saw what happened to that guy in Go Fish.
Yep.
On the swim team. But Giles is looking for a book that he lent Willow. He's pretty sure that the information he needs about the symbol is in this book. So, you know, Buffy's like, I'll go get it, and finds Xander, asks Xander like where Willow is, and Xander freaks out, and he's like, why nothing's going on, like why do you think we always know where each other is, da, 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 da. And then she's like, isn't that Willow's books and backpack? And he's like, yeah, she's in the bathroom.
Yep.
So Xander is Xander through and through right there. Satanic panic is not affecting him.
Oh no, especially when they start searching lockers in a few minutes, and he's worried about his Playboy. Even though they're looking for witchcraft stuff, he's like, my Playboys.
Yep. And so Willow isn't quite back from the bathroom yet, and Buffy goes over to get the book and sees the symbol in Willow's notebook, and now Buffy is concerned.
Mhm.
So, and then it doesn't help that Willow tries to like push it off, which we find out why in a like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But basically, Willow was doing a protection spell for Buffy, but since Buffy knows about it, it now does not work.
Yep.
But she assumes, like she tells her, the symbol is completely harmless, but they're doing this search of the lockers, and they'd already taken away 2 students before they even got to Amy's locker.
Yep.
So you can imagine what 2 students that was. So they get to Amy's locker, they find witch stuff, and they take her to the office. They get to Willow's. Willow knows it's coming. And again, they take Willow to the office. Oz goes with her, which I'm surprised they let him do,
Mhm.
honestly. But Buffy, just takes the book from Willow and goes to give it to Giles when she finds the library is being raided by Moo. And it is Buffy's mom's new organizations, Mothers Opposed to the Occult.
Yep. Moo.
Moo, which is definitely supposed to be MAD.
Yep.
Mothers Against Destructive Decisions, or originally Drunk Driving. So Giles is very upset. Buffy is very upset. Snyder is in heaven.
Yep. Okay. Although I do feel like there is a little bit of a point regarding the books that Giles has in the public library.
Yes.
Where they're like, please tell us what point, when is a student going to need this book regarding, like demon slaying and he doesn't have a response to that.
When
Giles
Buffy needs to slay the demons.
Needs to have those books at his house.
I don't think his apartment's big enough, honestly. Like 100%, I don't think it's big enough.
Like,
we've seen his apartment. He has books there. It's not big enough because it appears that most of the library are those books.
Yep.
But the fact that they know those books are there, though, points like the only reason they would know about that is because of Joyce. Joyce sent them. So we don't go to Buffy and her mom quite yet. We go to Willow and her mother. Mm-hmm. And Willow's mother is actually quite calm about everything. She's saying, oh, well, this is normal, like at your age, da 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 da. But because Willow's mom isn't getting really upset, she gets kind of upset when Willow mentions the fact that she's dating a musician. She goes, ugh.
Yeah, the look on her face, like the pure disgust. Oh, Willow.
Yeah.
Dating a musician.
Mm-hmm. But her mom grounds her, and Willow then starts saying things about how she sacrifices goats and worships the Dark Lord, and then her mother gets pissed and tells her to go to her room. I kind of wonder if her mother would have taken a little bit longer to warm up to the I'm going to burn you at the stake if Willow didn't say that stuff.
Yeah.
So everyone, if you're already in trouble with your parents, but you feel that they're not giving you enough attention even when you're in trouble, just keep your damn mouth shut. Like, that is a lesson there.
Yep. Don't poke the beast.
Mm-hmm. But then, Buffy goes home and finds Joyce there. And Joyce says Buffy is not to hang out with Willow anymore, which shocks Buffy. And also, everyone knows that's not going to be followed. Mm-hmm. And she says that, Giles will get most of those books back once Moo looks through them. And then Joyce basically says what Buffy does is pointless.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which we know from previous episodes that Buffy's presence makes a huge difference.
Yes. From the wish, we see that Buffy is definitively not pointless in what she's doing. Mm-hmm. Although I do agree with some of the points that her mother makes, which is that Buffy is constantly reacting to the evil instead of proactively fighting the evil, which, I mean, there is some truth to that, It's hard to hunt down the evil when you're trying to be covert.
Also, how are you, like, she doesn't necessarily always wait to be attacked. She has to wait for them to kind of come to her because
Uh-huh.
there's always a threat.
Mhm.
Always. Like, I don't think she really, there's one of her. Technically, there's two Slayers, but, like, how much evil's in the world? Like,
Mhm.
what is she supposed to do? Also, she's still, like, under 18 and going to high school. Joyce
Yeah.
would flip out if she was traveling the country.
Mhm.
Joyce wouldn't let her do the things that she is suggesting. That's
Yeah.
the other thing.
Yeah.
But Joyce has also just logicked her way out of having police or laws, because people are always going to break those laws. There's always going to be criminals. Why have police? Those types of arguments don't work.
Although I'm now going to ask the question of why have the police that we have?
That's different. Uh, you know, you do have, I mean, so looking at Buffy as a police officer, there is a council, right, that she has to answer to.
Yep.
Buffy is policed.
Yep.
They don't do a great job when it comes to Faith later, although they do punish, as we
Well,
know.
wasn't that kind of the idea behind the comic book The Watchmen? Who watches the Watchmen?
Mhm.
Like when the people who are supposed to be doing good become corrupt, who watches them? Who takes care of them?
Yeah.
Um, which I think is what we're dealing with as a nation right now, or possibly not even just us as a nation. I think that many nations are dealing with those issues right now.
Mhm.
Um,
And there are ways around that. Independent review boards being one. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, so you make sure folks don't have it.
mhm.
Um, but we find out in the scene that the reason Joyce is acting like an asshole to her daughter and everyone else is because she's seeing the dead children,
Yes, yes.
which should be also a red flag for her.
I am just assuming that she is already under a spell. Like
Mm,
that, seeing the dead children, like if you or I had a dead child come up to us, we'd be like, hang on a second, this is supernatural badness. Let's be suspicious. But I think that the demon has already kind of implanted itself in her brain.
yeah.
And
I
it's
mean,
not,
this, oh, go ahead.
I'm going to say, it's not just power of persuasion. I think it is mystical persuasion.
Hmm. Well, this entire episode, Joss Whedon has said, is supposed to be about things like the satanic panic that happened, and like the group mentality, mob mentality when it goes bad, which does not take long when it's the mob mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so um, Buffy then goes out and patrols, and she runs into Angel at the vigil at the, well,
Vigil. No,
at
it's
the
one of the merry-go-round.
merry-go-round. Yeah, I'm glad you know what this is.
I am fluent in Sabrina hand signals.
Yeah, spinny thing that I remember flying off of as a child. I don't remember hitting the ground, but I remember flying off.
But she mentions that she feels, that her mom had a point,
Hmm.
and she says she feels like the kid with his finger stuck in the duck.
Hmm.
And Angel's like, dike. It's another word for dam. And she's like, well, that story makes a lot more sense.
Hmm. Yes. Um, and Angel's saying like he found out about the dead kids because people are talking. They're even talking to him, he said, which is weird.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so when Buffy's questioning if she's making a difference, Angel says, we fight because there are things worth fighting for. Um, and she is making a difference. Um, and then while he's talking, Angel, mentions the kid's parents, not that he, like, abstractly.
Yep.
And you can see like something dawn on Buffy because we know nothing about the kid's parents. We've heard nothing. Usually when something like that happens, you see like parents grieving on TV, asking for justice, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even have names for the children.
Yep.
So then we go to the library, and Giles is having a mental breakdown trying to use this computer.
And yelling at the computer.
Yeah.
Calling it a fad. He's like, yes, I called it a fad. I will say it again.
You feel like he should be like chain smoking as he's hitting it. Like he's not having a good time with it. But Xander and Oz are having a great time watching him do it.
Yep.
So Buffy points out to the group that no one knows who these children are, where they came from, there's no backstory. So Oz, figures out he can, message Willow on the computer while she can't come, and she can do the work and send it to them.
Yep.
And as she is doing that and sending these files, which show that these incidences are happening every 50 years, all the way back to 1649. Mm-hmm. Every 50 years this happens. And the article from 1649, it's the same two kids, either in pictures or drawings as well. Yep. But the article in German is actually, because it's in the Black Forest, it's Hansel and Gretel. But the article actually, for people who read German, makes zero sense. Like if you were to read it, it's not sentences. So someone screwed up there.
Oh, I don't think so. Because if you remember going all the way back to season 1, Out of Sight, Out of Mind, they open up a textbook at one point, mm-hmm. and it's lyrics to a song. Like it's a chapter, and the chapter was about like assassination, but then it's lyrics to a song. I think they specifically had somebody writing Germanic gibberish from the props department. Like,
oh, but at least like a song makes sense. Gibberish doesn't. But I do love that a fan was so hardcore about it. They were like, "Let me translate this," or they're German. They're like, "That's not anything. Why are toilets being talked about here? Toilets weren't invented yet." But yeah, so Willow's mom at that point comes in and takes her computer and says, she's done all she can do. The only thing she can do is let Willow go with love. And at this, Willow's like, "Excuse me? What?"
Yep.
And she gets locked into her room.
And that's another thing. What's up with the external lock on Willow's door? Locks shouldn't work that way. Like,
well, I mean, yeah, I don't.
Like, I am highly concerned about any household situation where kids or anybody can be locked into their room. And so in older houses, it used to be you literally needed a key, and the key would unlock from either side.
Yeah.
But this idea of like just having a 20th century house with a lock that only locks your child inside, now I'm concerned about Willow possibly having been abused. Like,
well, I don't think she was physically abused. She's definitely neglected. I could definitely see her parents maybe locking her in her room, like if she was in trouble, like go to your room and just locking it. But I also don't think that they at any point cared enough to do that.
Well, she said, "This is the first time I've ever done anything wrong ever, mm-hmm. and you're grounding me." So I was very, suspicious of that locking situation.
Yeah, it's definitely bizarre.
So we know that Willow has an escape route because Angel came to her back patio door previously.
Well, she's definitely on like the second floor.
So I'm confused about that because previously
Angel is a vampire, so he can like do what he wants. Like
but like he came to her back door. She invited him into her house through her back door previously.
So if it opens up onto a little terrace, because we don't know that that's the first floor. I've always assumed that it was the second floor and she has like a little terrace or like a little, I guess terrace is the word for it. So that could still very much so be the case, especially if she's not leaving that way. And we never really see anyone who doesn't have supernatural powers coming in that way. When we're in the episode where it's snowing, the last one where it's snowing, and Oz is there, they look in through that window. We'll have to check and see if it's elevated or not, if we can tell if it's on the
All right.
first floor or not.
I am writing a note, and we need to discuss this at a section of our next episode. We are going to have a little conversation about Willow's bedroom. I'm writing a note right now. Willow's bedroom? Okay, I've written a note. And so we are looking at amends, we are looking at passions, and we are looking at, what is lie to me? Lie to me is that one that Angel comes to her door.
Yeah, but I don't think we see enough out of it other than he's coming through the door. But we'll see.
Yep.
Also, I really think that's a terrible idea to have in your child's room, just if it's on the first floor, glass doors that someone can just break right into.
Yep.
In general, that is a terrible idea for any bedroom. Don't do that.
Well, then maybe this isn't supposed to be a bedroom. Maybe it was supposed to be like a front patio room, and that's why it locks from the other side. Because
there's like a closet and stuff, though.
Yeah, but I mean, like maybe it was converted. Maybe it was originally like a, I don't know what word I'm looking for here, like a conservatory, and inside area to like the patio. And they, because they've got the patio, they've got another inner door to the rest of the house, and maybe that's why there's a lock.
I think if you're going that route, it makes more sense that her mother was realized what was going to happen, like that Willow had been bad, so she replaced her doorknob before Willow got home.
We're
but
probably overthinking this.
Yeah. So they're back in the library. Fairy tales are real, basically. They're talking about, or at least they start off that way. And basically what it comes down to is some people just like to watch the world burn. Like that's what these demons do. Like they like how they get their jollies is making humans destroy humans. So while this is happening, the male witch has been attacked, and by his father and like some neighbors or something like that, but he got away and he ran to the library to get Buffy. And he says, people are being pulled out of their homes. They already got Amy. So Xander and Oz run to Willow's house to help her. Giles and Buffy are going to go talk to Joyce.
Yep.
During that time, Willow's mom and a crowd come for Willow, and Willow's mom tells her to put on a coat, and she's like, what? And she's like, put on a coat, witch. And Willow tries to shut the door, but there's too many of them. Also, she's not going to be able to lock it from her side.
Yes. As we just talked about at length.
And Buffy and Giles get to Buffy's house. There's like some little meeting going on. It looks all very calm, but then Buffy and Giles is grabbed, and Joyce, what is that called when you chloroforms Buffy? And Joyce says to the dead children monster, that was easier than I thought.
Yep.
And they take Buffy. They leave Giles, but they take Buffy to be burned at the stake as well. Xander and Oz see Willow's place has been ripped apart. Willow is not there, and all the badness. Like that has to be absolutely terrifying. Buffy, Amy, and Willow are tied to stakes at the town hall, and all of Giles's books are at the base of them for kindling.
Yep.
And we get to see Cordelia as a hero here. She's slapping the shit out of Giles to wake him up, and she makes a point to say, you hit your head, or like the damage that was done to you was done prior to me slapping you.
Well, yeah, but also she does point out that he gets knocked unconscious a lot. Like there is a lot of time. And then she says, one day you're going to wake up in a coma. And
which is actually Cordelia that wakes up in a coma.
Yep.
Which, well, not wakes up in, because as Giles says, wakes up in a coma. Ugh, and he doesn't have time for her.
Yep.
But Cordelia was looking for Buffy, and that's how she found Giles.
Mm-hmm.
Oz and Xander run to City Hall and find like this group of neighborhood guys that are adulty standing there making sure no one disrupts the witch burning.
Yep.
And these guys chase them. And the person who lights the fire to burn them is Joyce. Like, Joyce is but her and Willow's mom have a nice exchange about how they should have lunch after all of this and stay close.
Mm-hmm. Although we never see Willow's mom again.
No. Well, I'm sure this is kind of like after Band Candy, where it's lifted and they realize how terrible they were and how Joyce is with Giles, only she didn't have sex with Willow's mom that we're aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And Willow's dad is out of town for all of this, which is important to note.
Yep.
But this is where Amy turns herself into a rat to escape. But this does not
be her go-to spell.
It's the one she knows.
It's the one she knows, and so she just turns herself into a rat to escape.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have the Yep.
Yeah, she doesn't have the decency to do it to Willow and Buffy first, although I'm sure they're glad about that afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Giles grabs supplies at his place and has Cordelia start putting the ingredients together while he's driving.
Mentions add in the toadstone, and
Mm-hmm.
she's sniffing it. She's like, it doesn't look like a toad. And he's like, it's from inside the toad. And
she's like, I hate this, which she should know by now. Don't sniff things.
Yeah, and she doesn't say I hate this. She says, I hate you.
Yeah, I hate you.
Giles. Yeah. And he's trying to remember the German incantation. Mm-hmm. So they do arrive. We now at this point have Oz and Xander in the ductwork, trying to reach Willow, not doing so great. Giles shows up and signals to Cordelia to get the fire hose. Mm-hmm. Cordelia is too busy spraying people to like pay attention to spraying the fire until Willow's like, I'm on fire. Mm-hmm. And Buffy tells her, hey, Cordelia, put out the fire. We're burning alive here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and before they arrive, Joyce says to Buffy, because Buffy's like, you're not going to be able to live with yourself, Mother. And she says, what kind of mother would I be if I didn't punish you?
Yeah. Yep.
And like, we know Joyce is under some sort of thrall at this point, but there are parents who actually, like, that's how they function. Like, that's something they truly believe, ones who are in cults, usually. But, like, there are children who have heard that as their parents are doing horrific things to them when they don't deserve them.
Again, I keep going back to the being a queer teenager, like, mm-hmm. Analogy in this, when, you know, Willow's mother is like, this is just a phase, you know, you're just acting out. And Willow's like, this is who I am. And I kept having those, you know, oh, queer teenager sensations again, like, oh, you're dismissing your child's identity. And then being like, oh yes, that is your identity. Now we need to hurt you. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, that was the resonance that hit with me, or continues to hit with me a lot when I watch these episodes. I feel like, I don't know if it's what the writer is intending or the director is intending, but there does seem to be, I want to reach out to the writers and be like, who hurt you? Who hurt you as you, like, which of your parents hurt you? Because you are drawing from experience here.
Or they're true crime fans, because if they're into, like, that's, I'm a big true crime fan, and one of the things that anytime it touches on cults and things like that, it's like what is said here is taken directly from things that have happened to people who are in cults. And when the children try to escape, or when the children aren't in the cult, like if they're a little bit older and they're trying to get their parent out, mm-hmm. these things are said. And sometimes the children are killed by their parents and the cult. I mean, you don't have to look any further than the Kool-Aid people.
Well, yeah.
But not to either of those extremes, but when I became a vegetarian, my mother and I really had it out, and she had said that it was just a phase. And that was something we fought about, and basically until the day that she died, because she took it very personally that I decided not to eat meat anymore, even though one of the main reasons I was doing it was because meat was making me physically ill. But the back to the Buffy, when Giles is chanting and Cordelia's spraying everyone, he finishes his spell and the children turn into like their true form, this giant ugly monster demon, and everyone can see it, and they start screaming and running away, and
it still tries to, it's like, you know, protect me from the bad girls. And they're like, yeah, it doesn't look the same when you're, you know, 30-foot tall
demon
troll monster. I do love Cordelia because she kind of puts on this little baby voice and she goes, I kind of liked it when they were the 2 little ones instead of 1 big one. Mm-hmm. 2 little ones.
This scene, part of it was actually taken out. It was censored because that's the other part of this thing. It's this episode is about censorship, and the BBC censored this episode where Buffy takes and kills the demon when she breaks the stake, or the stake that she's being burned at, and falls forward, and the demon runs into it with its throat. And Buffy goes, "Did I get it?
Did I get it? Did I get it?" Yep. And then you see, and she's gone right through the throat.
And then Xander and Oz fall through the ceiling right into where the fire just was. They were going to be a lot of help.
Yep.
And then we end with Buffy and Willow trying to help Amy, failing and being like, maybe we'll get her some nice stuff.
One of those wheel thingies. Yep. Yeah. And so this for a while, we will not really be hearing about Amy except for the casual Amy's a rat like conversation, but she does come back.
The next episode, they talk a lot about Rat Amy. Or there's at least one scene where Willow gets really excited about the stuff that she has got her new pet, who is Amy.
Yep. And so we hit right on into Helpless. Helpless is written by David Fury, and some of his other episodes are Go Fish. And again, this is one of his first solo pieces, and then he becomes a more steady writer. So I think it's interesting that we're seeing some of these writers who I guess are getting their first shot and then being invited back in to the writer's room saying, yes, okay, you know, you did well, come on back.
You get to be a Scooby.
So this is Buffy's birthday, and she is turning 18.
Yep. And traditionally, the 12th, 13th, or 14th episode of each season celebrates Buffy's birthday throughout the seasons. And this one is when we see Hank Summers really begin his estrangement from Buffy. And it's a hard one to take, especially anyone who is estranged from a parent or has divorced parents. Like this hits home and it hurts. We also will see the guy who plays the big bad in this episode, not the guy from the council, the vampire, Jeff Kober. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, but we'll see him again. He plays Kralik, and he'll return in season 6 to play Rack. And this episode's also chock full of references to Little Red Riding Hood.
Yep.
Usually with that specific vampire. But so we open at Angel's. Buffy and Angel had some sort of picnic, which is interesting since Angel doesn't eat, and he says that often. And they're they're fighting, but it's play fighting since Buffy has a baguette that she stakes him with.
Yes.
And when they're done, Angel asks if he'll be seeing Buffy for her birthday. And she's like, no. And like the way she answers it is kind of playful, basically that she's going to be spending time with her dad, going to an ice show. And then she has to scurry off to the library to train with Giles because he's going over stones with her. Which, what great fun.
Yep. These harmonic stones and crystals. He's asking her about, amethyst and what is it used for, and here's the grounding stone. And he's, kind of being a bit curt with her.
He also notices her nervous energy, but he doesn't really comment on it. Like, you can see him notice it, but he doesn't say anything. There's no follow-up, no asking about anything, just and then during patrols, Buffy is almost staked using her own stake,
which is not the last time that happens.
No, it is not. But her strength has failed her here, and she only lives because she headbutts the vampire and then grabs the stake and holds it to her chest, so when he falls on her, the pointy end goes into him.
Yep.
So at school, she's very concerned, and she goes and
she's throwing knives. She's throwing knives, and she's missing a lot. And when Giles walks in, she says something's wrong, and he dismisses it. He says, well, maybe you're coming down with a flu or something. And of course, the last time she came down with a flu, like, she ended up in the hospital. So, but she was very sick that time. She doesn't seem to be very sick this time. She just feels weak. But she does say, okay. And we hear Faith is on a walkabout. Faith has disappeared for a bit.
And, Giles tells Buffy to take it easy for 48 hours and not to patrol. And when we find out later what's going on, I think that this is Giles's way of trying to protect Buffy. He doesn't want anything to happen to her. He's well aware of what can, and he's trying to prevent it. So he's trying to convince her that she's sick and she needs to rest. Also, he wants her to rest up for what's coming.
Yes.
Doesn't make it right. Does not make it right. But he's trying to bend the rules as much as he can.
Yep.
At this point. Buffy's friends, again, want to celebrate her birthday. But she says, oh, me and my dad do this thing, and she's very excited about it. And when she gets home, there are flowers and a balloon and a card from her dad with tickets saying he can't take her, he can't get away from work. Joyce offers to take off work to take Buffy. That is a huge difference right there in the parenting. Joyce is like, it's your birthday, I will take off of work, this isn't an issue, like, because she knows Buffy is going to be heartbroken. There's no way she doesn't.
And the thing is, this was a tradition with her dad, and her mom's like, I'll go with, but her mom also knows that's not the same. Not the same as, it's almost like the pity accompaniment. And then we see Buffy asking Giles, her other father figure. And
she doesn't directly ask. She is like dropping hints, like, you would take someone if they were like your daughter or your slayer. And he's like, I need you to concentrate.
Yep.
Which tells us something is up, but Buffy is just hurt.
And
like,
so before all this has happened, we do see Quentin Travers with two other watchers, Hobson and Blair, and they are preparing a house. They are like sealing it up. They are bricking over the windows, and we can hear screaming in the background from what it turns out to be Kralik.
Yeah.
Um,
Is this like, is it an old boarding house? Is that what it is? Because it says like Sunnydale Arms or Farms or something outside. So it's not someone, that's the only thing I could think. Like, it would make sense if it was like a boarding house. Why this town has so many abandoned buildings in it, I
I
don't know.
do I do think that he said Travers says at some point that she walked into the house, but I think he actually named it as something.
Playing field, he called it. Like when he's telling Giles,
Uh-huh.
he says that she goes into the playing field. But that's just meaning that it's now active, like the game.
The
Cause
Sunnydale Arms, an abandoned boarding house
okay,
located on Prescott Lane.
okay, so yeah.
Yes, it was a boarding house. You were correct. Oh,
Um,
internet, you do not fail me.
um, but yeah, so Giles, and Buffy are. Oh well, yeah. So we know something weird is going on, but we're not able to put two and two together necessarily yet.
Yet.
So Giles has Buffy look into this one stone and concentrate. And when he feels that she is like really into it, clearly this trance isn't going to last very long, but he pulls out some sort of liquid in a syringe, does the alcohol swab on Buffy's arm, injects her with something, and then hides it as she comes out of the trance. And she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry."
He
Yeah,
puts his hand in front of the crystal to break
yeah,
her concentration.
yeah.
So, I mean, apparently it's a trance-inducing crystal. Did she not feel the? I mean, like afterwards, like sure she's in the trance, but did she not feel the injection? I feel after I've had a massive needle in my arm.
Well, when she's at full slayer strength and healing, I can see her not, because her body might, like, it's such a small thing, her body might be like repair, repair, repair. However, after a couple days in, like, she's still bruised, and I don't think that there's any way. But he's also no longer injecting her. So um but
So he
we
sends her home right
Mhm.
afterwards.
Yeah.
As soon as he's injected her, he sends her home, tells her to rest. She's like, I guess I'm still nursing that flu bug.
Hmm.
The next day at school, Cordelia is being like,
Manhandled.
yep, yelled at by a guy who, looked bad in front of his buds, sort of thing. And Buffy goes to like rescue Cordelia,
Hmm.
and she gets knocked down, and
not even
Cordelia.
Not even knocked down. She is thrown. She hits like a bench and she flies. Like, it's absolutely nothing. But yeah, Cordelia is the one that rescues her,
Mm-hmm.
which like it's how they have Cordelia like punching at him and stuff. I imagine that is exactly how Cordelia, like if she were a real person, would react.
Uh-huh. But yeah, so I mean, like Buffy says, like this something is wrong. I am not the Slayer right now.
Mhm.
Giles says you're like a normal girl, throwing knives at a girl sort of thing. Which, ew, like I know what he's saying, but
And
um,
when Buffy comes to him this time, you can see Giles starts looking around like he's being watched. Like, you can clock it, like how he's looking in the halls. And he hasn't done that before when they're talking about slayery things. Like,
yep,
he's concerned he's being watched.
yep,
Buffy doesn't realize it because, like, she's panicked.
yes,
And rightfully so. So Giles goes to the abandoned house that evening and meets with the man from the council. I can never remember his name.
Quentin Travers.
The devil. He's a mean man from the council. And Giles says he does not agree with this practice, that it's barbaric. And we find out that on Slayer's 18th birthday, she is given, they try and strip her of her powers by drugging her and sending her in to fight against, usually, I'm assuming, always a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and not it doesn't seem like just any vampire. Like, they pick a bad one. Like, at
Yes.
least they do for Buffy.
Yep.
And Giles doesn't agree with this at all. It's not, there's no reason for them to be doing this. Like, the only reason I feel like these guys are doing it is because they're tired of having women or little girls in a lot of these cases, who have managed to live longer than maybe they would have liked, be more powerful than them. You
Yeah.
know, you kill them off while they're still 18 or like when they're young, so that they don't become a problem for the council almost. You know, they're still not going to be questioning things at this
Hmm.
age. They're still able to control them. They're assholes, and the council does nothing for Buffy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Giles is very concerned. We see that this vampire is very deranged.
Mm.
He is in a straitjacket. His head is like cinched to the wall. There's a door with like locks on it that keeps him there. And he's being given pills, which I don't think we've ever seen a vampire on pills before,
Right.
drinking water.
And I'm wondering, it's almost like he has a brain tumor or something because he's
Yeah.
in physical pain with like, and so I'm like, if you have a brain tumor when you die as a vampire, do you just get stuck with like your vampire brain tumor? Does that hurt?
Yeah. I
Like,
have so many questions about this particular vampire because like he's a serial killer who had a problem with his mother, who sounds like she was not a great lady. Um and then so he went on to kill women. He has a big problem with women, specifically mothers.
yep.
Serial killers, they locked him away, which is where he was turned. How
Yeah.
did the vampire get in there and turn him? So many questions.
Well, maybe a vampire heard about him and was like, ooh, he'd be a fun vamp. Kind of like the way that Angel saw Drusilla and turned her crazy and was like, she would be fun.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. It was just, there's so many questions about him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we then pop back to the library where Willow, Buffy, Xander, and Oz are researching. And Willow is talking to Buffy, saying, like, of course we're gonna get your powers back. Everything's gonna be fine. But what if they don't come back and you can
Mm-hmm.
have a normal life? And Buffy doesn't like this. As she says later, like, she knows what goes bump in the night.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like she won't know, but she just won't be able to do anything about it anymore.
Yep.
Um, and she doesn't want to be at the old Slayer's home telling, stories about her glory days.
With Mr. Pointy.
Yes, who she's had bronzed.
Yep. And so when she visits Angel and he gives her a book of poems for her birthday, and he does point out that she seemed more excited about the dismembered arm in a box from last year. And so then he gives this like very awkward speech about her heart and about how she held her heart out in front of her for everyone to see, and like and he wanted to cover her heart with his heart and
Warm it, yeah.
warm it with his heart. and and then she's like, that's very sweet. And then she pauses and she's like, or if taken literally, very gross. And you see Angel, and he's also got this look on his face, and he's like, yep. I went there too.
Yep. And so that scene is the first time Angel says he saw Buffy when she was still human, like when she was chosen.
Now we do see that in season 2 from what Whistler's perspective.
Yes, but Buffy doesn't know that. From Whistler, yeah, it was Whistler.
Okay.
And before Buffy's at Angel's, we see the vamp gets free. He tricks one of the like low level Watcher Council dudes. I don't think that guy's a Watcher. I think he's a henchman basically for the council. He tricks him and turns him into a vampire and gets himself free, which is very important because the council guy has woken up now. all vampy. His transformation was very quick, unlike others.
Yep.
I don't know if the drugs that this vampire is taking does that or what, but he still wants to play the game. He wants he's like, oh, it's changed, but we're still gonna play. And Giles shows up at the abandoned house and realizes something is wrong. Thankfully, no one is there. Finds, the blood on the staircase on the handrail and runs out, and the other henchman who is he was not turned, he was just slaughtered.
Yep.
And Giles almost throws up and runs out of the place. Buffy is walking home and realizes it was a bad choice that she told Angel he did not need to walk her home. Angel really shouldn't have listened to that. I don't know why he did. First, she's getting catcalled by these guys, which freaks her out because, again, she can't do anything. And then she hears whistling, and it turns out to be Kralik. And he is, she's wearing her little Red Riding Hood.
Yep, her red hoodie. Her red hoodie.
Well, it's not a hoodie, it's an actual jacket.
Well, I mean, yeah, but it's a zip hoodie.
I think it's like a nice jacket with it, because it has the little clasps here. It's not a hoodie. It's a jacket because it has the lining in it too. Because when he rips it off of her, I noticed, I'm like, that was such a nice jacket. So she runs away. She barely escapes. Because she can't crawl up over the fence. She has to go under it. And the only reason she escapes is because Giles pulls up and she jumps into the car. And even then she has to, the vamp almost gets her. So Giles tells Buffy what has been going on, that he's been drugging her. She's very upset. And she has every right to be.
Yeah.
Cordelia shows up because she has to research a paper.
But if the world's ending, she's not going to bother.
Yeah, on Bosnia. And if the world doesn't end, she says she's going to need a note. She has to give Buffy a ride home because Buffy can't walk home alone.
Yep.
While all this is going on, Joyce is at home, looks like writing out bills. She's always writing out bills when something bad's about to happen to her. Have you noticed this?
I'm sure some of it is invoices for the gallery or
But she's always doing there's a checkbook involved and a pen, and she's writing. She should just never do that stuff after dark. Yeah. So she hears something outside, and then she at this point she should know better. She should know better than to open the door and walk through that threshold. But she doesn't, and she sees a shape which is much larger than Buffy, but wearing Buffy's coat and covered. And she goes over, and sure enough, it is Kralik, and he is commandeered also a Polaroid camera and leaves a Polaroid of him and Joyce for Buffy.
Except, I still want to figure out how cameras work in Buffyverse. Because cameras use mirrors, I think, to take photos. They use the optic, and so
it depends on the camera.
So but how does that work if they don't cast a reflection? We've seen photos or paintings of vampires before, but again, how does that work if they don't?
So not all cameras use mirrors. There are mirrorless cameras. However, some of the ones that they are using, there's no way that they're mirrorless.
The original cameras with some of the pictures of Angel and Drusilla and stuff like that, those use mirrors.
So it depends, because I've taken photography classes where they have, I forget what they're called, but there's no mirror involved. Basically what it is, it's the ones where you have to, you open up, you move the little slide thing, and the image, the person cannot move for an extended period of time. There is no mirror involved in those. It's just the image hitting the paper, the light hitting it. There's no mirror in that, but more sophisticated ones, there certainly are. And I want to say that most likely Polaroids use mirrors.
But okay, so we have a Polaroid photo of Kralik being like super smiley with Joyce's mom being, terrified.
I really think that had to be fun to film, like doing that. Like for the actors, like look terrified and you look thrilled.
So yeah, Buffy realizes that she's got to go save her mom when she comes back, and she comes back and she like sweeps the flowers and the tickets and everything into the garbage.
Yeah.
And it's just this like, she is so done with the effing father figures in her life who have just, been awful to her and betrayed her. And
and she's over her birthday too. Like her birthday brings nothing but problems.
And so then she has to go face to face with this guy who has mommy issues. Like she's having some daddy issues, and she's gonna go face off against this mommy issues monster.
And so I understand that because this guy has Joyce, she wants to like hurry up and get there. But also Joyce's bait, she's probably safe for a little while. Mm-hmm. Buffy should have gone and got Angel to even out those odds.
Yep.
He's now playing by the rules. She wasn't even supposed to be aware that there's a game. So she really should have like grabbed Angel. Yep. But she doesn't. She just grabs
or the other Scoobs who, like
I mean, Angel would have been the better pick there, I think.
Yeah.
But
she should have grabbed somebody.
Yeah. But she doesn't. And so we have the scene where Zachary Kralik is telling Joyce all about how awful his mother was while he has Joyce tied in a dark room to a chair and gagged, and he's taking thousands and thousands of Polaroids, which would have been very expensive. Where is he getting this money from? I'm sure he's just stolen it, but still. Yeah. So he specifically says his mother had no self-respect, so she tried to take his. And what he's not going to kill Joyce. That is not his goal. He's not going to kill Buffy. He's going to turn her. And then the first thing that she sees when she's a vampire is going to be Joyce. And Buffy is going to be the one to kill Joyce. Mm-hmm. And then he goes, I'm aware I have problems with mothers.
Yep.
Like, obviously this is a terrible character. He needs to die. But he's a fun character. He has a story. He has fun lines. Mm-hmm. He's self-aware.
Yep.
Not as good as Spike, but whatever. So Buffy then enters and puts a stake in the door. Uh-huh. I don't know if it's so they don't hear the door close or if it's just so it doesn't lock. But at any rate, it doesn't matter because the little henchman vamp takes it out, and Buffy in her giant bag of killing tricks takes out the damn crossbow, which, as Jasmine has pointed out, never stakes anyone.
Yep.
Except getting Giles in the butt or the back.
Yes.
Jolly
good.
Jolly good. And speaking of Giles, while this is going on, the guy from the council,
Then Travers.
Yes. I don't like him so much. I just refuse to learn his name. Shows up to tell Giles that, Buffy has entered the playing field, and Giles is like, no, the test can't happen because I've already told her it doesn't work anymore. And he says, well, tough shit, basically. And Giles is off to go help Buffy. So she is going to get reinforcements, just a human one. And she doesn't know about it. So back to the abandoned house. Buffy finally gets to use a bookcase to take somebody out. It's always happening to her and the Scoobies. And finally, she's like, take this, vamp, and throws a bookcase onto them. Finally, Giles not having those damn bookcases bolted down in the library has taught her something.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, so it's on basically this vamp. The Kralik keeps making Little Red Riding Hood references while he's hunting Buffy,
Mm-hmm.
and like quoting from it, from the actual text. She pulls out a crucifix because she tries, of course, shooting him and it doesn't work. And he likes being burned with the crucifix.
Yeah, he like takes her hand. He's like, "Oh, a little lower, a little lower." That is so skeevy, and
Yeah.
and you know, he definitely seems to be getting like a sexual gratification from it.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a special vampire.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say that. So Buffy's freaked out by this, as anyone would be. So Buffy runs to the kitchen looking for weapons and just finds the dead guy. We never see him other than like an arm with blood on it. So, you know, your imagination sometimes is far better than anything that you actually see, which I think they're really playing on there.
Mm-hmm.
But he stops trying to get into the kitchen. Buffy finds 0 weapons and just decides to leave and try and go upstairs, which of course he grabs her leg.
Yep.
She gets away and manages to get to the room that is covered in the Polaroids of Joyce.
Covered.
Like, that took the props department a while to do.
Yep.
Like, they're everywhere, all the walls. So Buffy leaves that room and then runs into Zachary again, Zachary Kralik, and he is trying to take his pills. Buffy sees them and grabs them and runs down a laundry chute with them, which takes her directly to Joyce.
Yes.
And Joyce says, you know, we got to get out of here. He comes down. He's pissed. He wants his pills, takes his pills, and he apparently really likes taking them with water, which is a choice.
Yep. I was going to say, like, I dry swallow, so.
Well, you would think he'd want them with blood. But, I mean, maybe they have to have blood on the premises for him.
Uh-huh.
But he takes it with water and he starts gloating. And then we find out what happens when a vampire drinks holy water.
Yep.
And he starts burning from the inside out and then gets dusted.
Yep.
Which is interesting. And of course, Buffy is holding the holy water.
And she says, if I were at my full Slayer strength, I would be punning right now.
Mm-hmm. So she goes to help Joyce, and the second vampire has wiggled his way out from underneath the bookcase and goes to kill Buffy. But Giles is there, and he stakes the shit out of him.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the library, Joyce, I guess, is at home safe. Buffy is at the library with Giles, and the council tells Buffy she has passed. Yep. Buffy wants none of this guy, says if she's back at her full power, he had better be out of town because she will kill him. Yep. And he also informs Giles that he has failed. He was being tested as well. He cannot see clearly when it comes to Buffy. He has a father's love for her. So he is fired. But Giles refuses to leave. He said he's not going anywhere. He has a job there. And the guy's, what's his face from the council is just like, I didn't think you'd be leaving, but as long as you don't interfere, yep, I don't really care.
You send a new watcher, don't you interfere.
Yep. And then Buffy and Giles are both beaten up, but Giles goes about helping to fix up Buffy, which is a very touching moment because while what happened was extraordinarily screwed up, Giles came through in the end.
Ultimately, she was faced with one father figure who chose his job over her,
Mm-hmm.
and another father figure who chose her over his job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Giles. How we all love him.
I know.
So then we're at the Summers household. And I'm guessing it's Buffy's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And Willow and Oz and Xander and Joyce are all there making lunch. It appears anyway. I'm assuming either that or, Xander is just eating as he does.
Yep.
But Willow says she's going to write an angry letter to the council. She's very upset with how all this has gone.
Mm-hmm.
And Buffy can't open a jar of peanut butter, and Xander offers to get it for her and needs Willow to do it for him.
Yep.
Because he is struggling. He's a struggle bus. He can't do it.
Yep.
And I love that he asks Willow, not Oz.
Yep.
Will, can you give me a hand?
And so that was us getting our way through Helpless.
Mm-hmm. Such a good episode. It really is.
Yep.
And there's so much that happens.
Mm-hmm. They're definitely
Mm-hmm.
Next week, we are discussing the Zeppo
Mm-hmm.
and Bad Girls. I remember when I first started watching Buffy, one of my friends was telling me that her favorite episode was the Zeppo. And she was like, and I was like, I don't get that. But, like we've got the Zeppo and we've got Bad Girls.
Mm-hmm. Which I imagine is one of your favorite episodes. Because it's faith heavy.
It is so faith heavy.
Mm-hmm. Which will be nice. We haven't seen Faith in a while.
No, we haven't. We will see her for the Zeppo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, really. So season 3 starts out with a bit of faith, and it ends with a lot of faith.
Yes.
The middle, not so much.
Yep.
But and we're drawing towards the end of this season. I mean, we're right in the middle right now. So but yeah, we're going to be hitting a lot of faith episodes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for just Jossin with me.
Yes, we will see you in the hellmouth next week.